Hello, everyone. This is another Freedom to Feel conversation, and my guest today is Katie Molumby. She's the author of Purposeful Health, an intentional guide to personalized wellness. She's also a certified health, wellness, and mindset coach. So, this is my brief introduction to Katie, as I always do with all my guests. The full bio will be at the end of the video. But a question that I love asking and never left me for some reason. And it's a question that I ask myself very often, my own self. So, besides all the labels and all the what we do, how how would you describe yourself in this very moment? Who is Katie?
Ooh, starting off really deep. I love it. Katie is a lover of life,
Mm,
trying to understand and learn as grow as much as I can. I never cease to be humbled or amazed by the world around me, and
uh-huh.
I want to leave this world a little bit better than I joined it. So I'm always pushing myself to learn how that exactly that looks and what that means for me, but, ultimately, that's my goal is to leave this world better.
That's such a beautiful intention to have, purpose, mission, whatever name we can give to that. Kind of doing whatever it is to benefit ourselves and those around us, the community, and then humanity as a whole. And the question that comes to mind immediately by listening to you is this idea of a better world. What would that look like? What vision comes to mind?
Yes, I think one where everyone judges each other a little bit
Mm,
less, is a little more tolerant and understanding, moving with empathy and compassion, patience and grace. Um,
yeah.
I think, all of us contain I think at the root of us, all of us are good. I think a lot of us have had experiences that have taken us away from that to some
Right.
degree.
Right.
But really just trying to remember that we all are one in some way, shape, or form, and not look at your neighbor as an enemy or someone separate than you. Really trying to see yourself and everyone is a really good way of um, moving with that love and grace towards everyone else.
How did you come to understand and be on this path of knowing that we are not separate from one another in our environment, that this reality has this, let's say, this ground of absolute existence that we all share?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. I think my decade of social work has really helped me kind of understand that. As different as the people are that I've served, I've realized that we all have something in common. I have something that could make me a friend or at least get along with
Mm,
everyone that I've crossed paths with. And also, spirituality has really, kinda helped me see that,
yeah.
like, how fortunate I am to be experiencing this life, but how life exists everywhere in billions of different forms, and, ultimately, that life is precious regardless of how it looks and how different it might be for myself. There's something I have in common with all existence, I believe, so, just really honoring and respecting life.
Yes, yeah. You see, that sounds to me like timeless wisdom. I usually use this concept of something that, the type of knowledge and wisdom that would transcend the idea of time. Like 500 years from now, 1,000 would still kind of resonate with that truth. And, looking at the work that you do, because it's not just about spirituality, although you do address that. It's the topic that in your book that I really resonated, gravitated towards chapter 9, purposeful soul, nurturing the purposeful spirit. But you address everything, the body, the mind, and everything else in between. So What is the connection between, let's say, physical, emotional health, psychological health, and spirituality? Are they all connected somehow? Are they all one path to another without?
Yes, that's such a great question. I personally, I believe that they are all connected. I think that as someone that wants to help others in their on their health journey, I think that
Mm,
our spiritual well-being is some and looking at ourselves as spiritual beings is something that often goes overlooked when it comes to our holistic health. And often feeling that connectiveness really
yeah,
appreciating and contributing to something greater than ourselves can move mountains as far as our personal health and wellness journeys. So
right.
I think it is all intertwined. I that's really the main goal of my book is to get people not to pretend like I have all the answers, but really get people to think outside the box and really see how
Mm,
every aspect of their life is goes back to their health and well-being too.
yes. So you use the concept of purpose a lot. So the word that you use is purposeful. And everything about your book and everything about you, we never met before, but I got that as it's funny. It's like you mentioned in the book, everything's an energy, vibration, frequency. So we can sense those things. So I feel everything. And the word that came to me was positivity. Like she's so positive. Everything. It's like this is a guide to positivity. If you want to be positive as a doorway to awakening health and wellness and spiritual awareness, then you are a wonderful guide. Not just as the message as in words with the book, but you as a human being with this expression as you are now. So it's really beautiful to see that. So why the word purpose? How did that come to you? And what's the meaning of purpose to you?
That's a wonderful question. For me, when it comes to purpose or being purposeful with our health and wellness, I'm meaning intentionality, being intentional, really
Yeah.
knowing what the intention is behind our actions. I think we live in a very fast paced world. And so it's easy to start just going through the motions without really being really understanding what our ultimate goal is or what we want to get out of our actions. And oftentimes we're not getting the results we want then. So, really bringing things back to what is the intention behind the actions. And
Yeah.
again, I bring purpose into so many different areas of life, but it really comes down to intentionality. I do visit purpose as well as like our life purpose in the book too. And with that, I think, you know,
Yeah.
it's really listening to your own calling. I'm not here to tell anyone what their purpose is or is not. I think that can evolve and change throughout our lives. I don't think that's necessarily one thing. It's more of an expression of love and really listening to what lights us up, what feels good, and sharing that with the world um, unapologetically. And you know,
Yeah.
things that things that we were drawn to as a kid can be kind of insightful towards what our purpose is, things that we could do without making any money, things that seem to make time kind of disappear. There's a lot of indicators that
Yeah.
can kind of shed light onto what your purpose might be, and it can look very very different as you age and go through the different stages of life. So um, really it's about
Yeah.
bringing it back and listening to yourself and what feels good, what doesn't, and how do you want to show up in the world, and what do you want to give to the rest of the world, really.
Yeah. I love that. I love concepts. But of course, I apply them. I try to apply everything that I know, or most of the things that I know. And it's easy said than done. And then you just kind of find yourself, in a way, questioning and doubting sometimes, what's real, what's not, what's really, you know, what really carries that the purpose that you speak of that will lead to the greater good in the end without without forcing anything or actually or trying too hard. Just actually should be easy in a way, right, Katie? That's what I feel a lot of times. It doesn't mean that it doesn't it is work, but it feels peaceful and it feels like effortless when you're doing something that's coming from the heart. As I usually use the word the heart for some reason, but it's the same thing as the soul doing things that are in alignment with our truth.
That's very, very true. You brought up alignment. I think just moving with what feels true and aligned with you, moving with authenticity and that
Yeah.
intentionality. It's easy to feel like I'm late in the game, or I should have found this 5 years ago, and then try to get stuck, kind of burning yourself out, feeling like you're playing the catch up game. But I think
Yeah.
really all of all of our journey has purpose, even the pain and the things a lot of times we wish we didn't experience. They all have meaning and have brought you where you are today. So,
Mm,
really just having patience and acceptance of where you are too is a part of that purpose. And really just it's doing a lot of reflection and
yeah.
getting intentional about moving forward too, but accepting where you are today.
Yeah, that's a big one. And you talk a lot about self love. That's one of the practices. That's a profound one, too. One that feels very natural. It's almost like it should be common sense, right? To love ourselves unconditionally. But it doesn't really happen easily. It takes practice. And that's so interesting. Just even to reflect about this, it doesn't make a lot of sense that we have to practice loving ourselves, right?
It's we're at war with loving ourselves, really. I think a lot of people that
Um,
truly love themselves get shamed in doing it. They're told they're arrogant or full of themselves, when actually loving yourself is the best way you can authentically love other people without conditions or expectations or projections. So, um, I think we are in a society, unfortunately, that kind of makes us go to war with ourselves in many ways, and so it's really a rebellious act to love yourself unconditionally and see that,
yeah,
you only knew what you knew back then, and you were acting and doing the best with what you knew at that time, and all of that is a beautiful part of the journey that's brought you here today again. So, um, yeah, I think you're never going to love yourself 100% of the time. There's always going to be those moments of self shame and blame and guilt, and knowing that you weren't doing your best at a given point. And um,
yeah,
we fall off that track, but it's how quick can you get back on? How quickly can you recognize that I'm not moving from that place of full self love and understanding and compassion,
right.
and steering yourself gently back on course.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. So that's would you call that the work of healing? Would you use that word? I usually use the concept of healing, or healing emotions and our past, in all that. So it's a constant kind of work, isn't it?
It
To
really
me,
is.
it's wonderful work. Some people don't really engage with that because they find it to be painful, even. But for me, it has been very interesting to just engage with all kinds of healing and watch.
I completely agree. I think, I've engaged in escapism and trying to run from my trauma in the past, and
Yeah.
it brought me further off course. And I realized I wasn't really moving from authenticity or true self love. I was often moving from a place of like
Right.
shame and punishment, at the root of it, and doing a lot of healthy things, thinking that telling myself I was doing the right thing, but the action the intentions behind it were not um, unconditional love, that's for sure.
Mm,
So I think we're always in a perpetual state of healing, or we should strive to just kind of accept that. But we can heal from certain parts of our life, but I
yeah.
think life is always going to be giving us new things to heal and grow from. So
Yeah.
just being patient with that, and not pretending like you're ever going to close that box up and be able to walk away from the healing process.
That's true. You talk about that too, the things we can control and we cannot control. That's an interesting too. I think you call purposeful acceptance. Yeah.
Yes.
Embracing what we cannot control. That's a big one. Perhaps even now at this time that we living in with all the you know politics and which I don't understand much about these things, but I do see on TV. My husband watched those things, and it doesn't make sense to me. I guess that's why I don't engage with any of it. But would you consider that escapism in a sense? In my case, I don't engage with anything I'm not interested in. Do you think that's something about here that's trying not to kind of face reality, or was it just something about interest? I'm just not, I feel like I'm not interested.
Sure. I think that's more being authentic to who you are.
Right.
I think it's great to be somewhat knowledgeable in as many areas of life, but if you don't feel called or you feel completely disinterested in something, why force it? That's just not your calling. That's not how you're meant to show up, and that's okay too. I think escapism is more
Yeah.
when we know that we should be doing something or we feel that calling and we're running away from it rather than just genuinely not feeling a calling or a pull to it in any way. I think the people that, and nothing against sports, but there's a lot of people that spend so much of their free time watching sports that they're not getting a lot of,
Yes.
you know, meaningful things done for themselves that they really want to be doing. So, I think that would be more of like escapism, avoiding things you want to do or you feel called to do, you're just not doing it, rather than just feeling a disinterest.
What is your take on trying to change others or guiding them? Is that something that we can do intentionally? Or every time we actually engage in trying to change somebody is actually it's showing our own, let's say, the things that we need to work on ourselves. That's, yeah, I'm wondering what do you think about that?
I can relate to your struggles a lot, and I admire you for, recognizing those, like, the urge to want to, like, inspire change in others. I don't think you ever wanna just force it upon people, but, like, you wanna be that inspiration,
Right.
and, not everyone's there, not everyone will even be there in this life. So, just I think you're doing a wonderful job of leading by example. You are, listening to your callings, showing them proudly with the world and inspiring a lot of other people. And the right
Yes.
people are coming to you and inspired by those actions. It's hard when you want to be inspiring the people, your family, those people
Yes.
close to you, and it
Yeah.
falls on deaf ears. I can relate very much to that. But I think if you continuing to walk your truth and own who you are and love what you're doing so much, I think that that has the best chance of inspiring change in others rather than trying to be condescending or kind of
Yeah.
force your opinions onto other people. And a lot of times we have good intentions when we do it, but it's just not going to be well received because they're going to be defensive and they're, instantly not hear what you're saying with
Right.
like that you have any good intentions behind it. So, really just trying to lead by example, maybe ask questions and genuinely show interest, and
Right.
maybe those conversations can eventually kind of steer um, in that direction and spark some interest. But ultimately, if it's meant to happen for them, it will, and if they want that for themselves, they will.
Yeah, and wisdom. That's what I call timeless wisdom. Yes, it resonates very much. True. There's a difference between intention and impact. So we need to know the difference between them. Sometimes we have great intentions, but then we impact other people in a not so, let's say, positive way because we are pushing, as you said, we're trying to force, and that never works. And what is your suggestion in this case? Like, this has been an interesting dance for me, trying to move away actually from people that are not in alignment with their own truth, that they're not able to see that they hurting themselves, and by hurting themselves they hurt others. So when I see that a lot of people, they forget themselves and they start doing things, they're just distracted by so much, in their own psyche and the environment, that they forget about their own well-being, and then they affect everything else in a not so positive way. So, what is your suggestion? Because in my case, I have been trying to move away from certain people and places too, and all that.
I can relate so much to what you're saying. I've been a people pleaser by nature, nearly my entire life.
Yeah.
It came from a place of like genuinely just wanting to be kind and helpful for others and kind of easygoing. And it led to kind of eventually feeling very walked on, used, unappreciated. And I realized in many of the relationships, there was no concern for my well-being as much as I was giving to theirs and
Right.
catering to their happiness. So, I can relate so much because I've recently been, and it's still something I'm struggling with. I feel a lot of guilt and, I beat myself up at times mentally about setting up boundaries with people that just weren't respecting, the
Right.
reciprocity or seeing what I was bringing to the table and appreciating me or showing up for me the way that I needed or the way that I was trying to show up for them at least. So I think, you know, it's there's no like clear. I think the sign that you feel guilty means that you have a good heart and good intentions at the end of the day. You don't want to hurt anyone, but
Right.
ultimately you deserve to live a happy, fulfilling life too, and that does not mean being a doormat for other people. And so, it's kind of how do you gracefully either set boundaries or walk away from the people that aren't um, giving you that kindness and consideration that you deserve. Um, sometimes I think having a conversation would make things worse. Sometimes I feel like a conversation is needed and I just don't know how to say it. So
Yes.
it's something I'm still working on and struggling with. But ultimately, um, you know, knowing what you're bringing to the table and what a kind, genuine person you are, and seeing that like, are they appreciating this? Are they showing up for me with the same intentions? Does that always mean 50-50? No, but does it mean that they see what you're contributing and in their life, and are they trying to show kindness and respect to you as well? If that's not the case, then they're probably just not lucky enough to have you, and they don't deserve to have you in their life to the degree that they were at least. So um, it's there's I don't think there's an easy, like, rule, unfortunately. I wish there was, but I think, it's just, every relationship kinda doing that assessment. Does it feel good? Does it feel like this person's here
Yeah.
with good intentions towards me too? If not, then I need to take action to put up boundaries or remove myself from this relationship. Um, and the fact that you feel guilt or, feel bad for hurting their feelings shows that you're a kind person at the end of the day.
Right. Yes. So it sounds to me like everything is just, it goes back to the sense of peace again, acceptance, like you said. To me, it always goes back to that. And that has to do with freedom in a way, spiritual freedom. That if we know our nature, then that's it. Why would we be afraid of anything else or push anything else away? We're just open to everything as it is without trying to change. And that sounds like a lot, though. And it takes, but I think when we are in that space of truth, it's much easier because then everything becomes so expansive that we are able to accommodate a lot more and let it go easily. There's something that happens that's been my path, spiritual truth, and I feel that. And then it might look from the outside that I am accepting unacceptable situations, but not really. I know exactly I know in the sense of body mind complex, I know what's happening. So I'm not really concerned about anymore about people and environment. I just kind of, I'm just there.
I love everything you said. I think, you know, I strive to find that, like, eternal acceptance, that
Yeah.
constant state of peace. I think the world does a good job of being life and throwing me these challenges. But
Yes.
I think that, when we set the intention of loving ourselves really unapologetically and unconditionally, we're gonna be thrown a lot of tests. Like, "Oh, you think you really love yourself. How
Yes.
about this?" And people are gonna be projecting. There's gonna be a lot of ways people are gonna try to make you hate yourself to some degree, or shame, or feel, shame or
Yeah.
belittled, or unworthy, disconnected from yourself. Life is going to throw every challenge to really see, do you really love yourself? And I think that's really kind of what happens when you set that intention. Is the universe is going to say, I don't know,
Mm,
let's see if you really love yourself.
yeah. I can see the truth behind that too, right? And I don't know if the universe, as you call it, is doing on purpose, right? It's just natural. It's already happening anyway. We can't really push away anything that's already here, even though if we realize certain things, but they don't go away. Like the body mind. We are spiritual beings, but we're still in the body. We still have a mind that's constantly kind of thinking and going back and forth. So we can't really make everything disappear or dissolve. So the only thing we can do really is establish ourselves again in that truth. I'm aware. I'm a spiritual being. I'm not really. This is an experience, and what an experience! What an amazing experience.
Right. Absolutely. And being able to remove yourself from the dramas, the conflicts,
Yes,
the everything that attempts to remove you from that notion,
yes,
staying grounded in it, and standing 10 toes down on that.
yes. So you give in your book, you give so many tools though, and they are all like heart opening and positive, transformative. If you're open to go all the way and kind of commit to practicing these tools, then it's just becomes this completely different way of living here. So I have a question for you about, and that's within the topic of vibration and frequencies and all that. You quoted Nikola Tesla. If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. What is the difference between those three things?
Yeah, well, they're all very much related. When we think about frequency, it's a specific, everything on this planet and this universe has its own um, tune or its frequency that it's resonating on.
Yeah.
He was a pioneer in that area, and he found that if he could tune to an object's specific frequency, then he could alter it. He actually moved a skyscraper because he was able to tap into its frequency. So,
Wow.
like understanding that we're all vibrating at our own frequency is extremely powerful. Learning a little bit about quantum physics and seeing that, as stable and solid as objects appear, when you go down to a molecular level, it's chaos. It's nothing but vibrations and moving, and sound can actually alter the way objects are behaving. And so the frequency that we expose things to actually has a powerful impact, even us. The earth has its own vibration. And so tuning into that vibration of the earth is powerfully healing to the body. There's different tunes for that do well for different organs and different systems in the body.
Right.
um, and understanding that when we're moving from a place of gratitude and love and joy, that those vibrations or frequencies are different than when we're moving from shame or guilt or sorrow or grief. So um, our body, though it might have its like home body, like base frequency, ours changes. And energy to it. I think just remembering that we are electrical beings too at the end of the day. So as much as like talking about balancing our chakras, it might seem like
Yeah.
very far-fetched to people as far as like our overall health and well-being. When you actually see the science behind it, it makes sense that we would pay attention to these energy points in our bodies that um, do affect our body's systems and our organs and the way our body's functioning as a whole. So
Yeah.
it all does connect back to our health. I think we like to think of our, spirituality as something very different, but I think science is beginning to affirm a lot of these things that ancient traditions have
Yeah.
respected and known for a long time.
Sometimes I feel maybe that's why when you sent me the book and I was reading it through, going through the contents, the chapter that caught my attention immediately is the one that talks about soul and spirituality, because something in me just gravitates towards that. And then sometimes I wonder, when I don't have these conversations here with some of my guests, I always bring it up anyway, spirituality, even we are talking to a scientist or whatever it is. But and then a lot of times something in me says, why aren't you doing exactly that? Talking all the time, narrowing it down and talking about spirituality 24/7. And I wonder if that's a calling or that's just kind of a personal interest, from the ego to kind of engage with one part of life, which we already know everything is connected. It's all part of that. I cannot ignore it in the body and the mind. So I don't know if I'm trying to get somewhere with this, but I feel like sometimes I feel guilty again by not engaging with spirituality only and only talking about these things and writing about these things. Do you feel a pull towards certain things, and do you feel guilty about others?
That's a great question. To be honest, I feel like
Yeah,
purpose can be applied in so many different ways that I feel very fortunate to have just basically bringing intentionality in all areas of life. I feel like that it's limitless for me.
yeah,
Um, there are a lot of specific niches as a health coach that people feel very pulled to. I felt very stuck there. I felt like overall, I wanted to help people just get really clear on what worked for them. So, I purpose, that that word just rang true to me, and I ran with it, and it's evolved, and I love this journey that I've been on with it.
yeah,
Um, Personally, when you were talking about your calling to spirituality, I see that common thread in all of your podcasts and all of your even if it might not have the label of spiritual behind it, you do bring a spiritual,
yeah.
um, feeling to everything you're doing, but, one of my favorite parts about spirituality is it is not clearly defined. What spirituality is to you could be very different to me or someone else, so I think you are moving from a very, like, spiritual, place when in your podcast already. The questions you ask, the way you move, the way you honor your guests and really, dive into them, I feel like it is a very spiritual practice, so, um,
Mm,
I don't think if you feel like you need to be exclusively spiritual, I don't think you're very far off from that.
right. I love there's another chapter in your book that's titled Health is an Inside Job. So we see anything that has to do with the inner world, working on yourself. That's what's different about religion, right, Katie? Because religion is all about the devotion to a being that's outside of you, let's say a God that's out there, it's not here. So you're always very devotional to that God. But then when it comes to spirituality, it's almost like it's a devotion to the divinity that's here. So it's not there, it's here already.
I'm grateful for my religious upbringing. It's instilled a lot of great morals and values. But really, when I started,
Right,
growing into adulthood, I started questioning a lot of things and realizing that a lot of things that I was taught, when I thought about it critically on my own, it didn't really ring true for me. And so I wanted to expand and see what did. And I found that, like,
right.
I don't wanna feel like I'm separate from God. I feel like we are all a part of God. God is in all of us, um, to be honest, the term God even makes me think of more of a man, and I like to think of God as asexual or, you know, life-bringing, which to me would be more of a female, entity, but I like to think asexual, but
Yeah.
So there was things that just didn't ring true for my certain parts of my religious upbringing for me, and I wanted to feel like I wasn't going to be condemned for thinking for myself when it in terms of how I connected and
Right.
loved God and myself. So yeah, I think you're right. I think a lot of spirituality is is recognizing that you are the God in you, or you are a part of God at least.
Yes. So I think by trying so hard to see God or find, something that could solve all our problems, a destination, a place, somebody, then we get lost. We actually get a lot more lost than anything else. Well, we could, for some people, they could transcend all that, transcend the tools and then find it. But it has been my case too. But I'm just very much committed to the absolute, the very direct path. What is the truth here? And just being able to look at it and then investigating to see how really true that is. And that's why I have to say I love Vedanta for that reason. Although it is a religion, but it's the spiritual teachings that I'm interested in.
Of course.
So we're almost at the end. Would you like to make any comments about that? Kate has said a lot of things there.
Oh, that's okay. That was beautiful. I agree. I love learning about all religions. I think they all have some divine truth in
Yeah.
them, and we all have a lot to gain from learning about all of them, really. And it ultimately it's following the path that resonates with your what makes you feel like you can connect to something greater
Mm,
than yourself, whether that be nature or God or the community around you. I think whatever that is, to feel connected to something out greater than yourself. That's what it's all about.
yeah.
And I love that you're on that journey too, and don't pretend like you have found the answers that one
Right.
key and that's it. I think it is a constant journey, and that's how you're going to be successful is continuing to seek rather than pretending that you know.
Yeah. Oh gosh. So I want to mention your services. Your website will be at the end on the podcast notes, purposefulpathhealth.com. But your services, you have a lot of interesting ones that I was going through. So besides your book that's on Amazon and it's out there on your website as well, Purposeful Health, an intentional guide to personalized wellness, you also offer intake health consultations one-on-one, single health consultation, that's for returning clients, a personal both chart and life purpose reading, purposeful health 90-day program, healthy home rescue, and custom office 6-week program. Did I miss anything, Katie?
No, I do wellness workshops too, group sessions once in a while,
Yeah,
and I'm always growing and trying to expand. So there'll be more to come in the future. But thank you.
yeah.
You did a great job of sharing those.
Ah, wonderful. And then one that caught my attention before we say goodbye for today is I have another question for you about freedom. But personal birth chart and life purpose reading. Talk to me for a moment about that, if you could.
Yes. Well, I also have a deep love and respect for astrology. And I think that when I started learning about my own birth chart, I started feeling more clear about my own purpose.
Yeah,
Not that it solved all of my problems, but I love diving into that as a tool towards understanding kind of our purpose. And I want to help others do that same thing. So it's basically an astrology one-on-one breakdown, just kind of walk you through
yeah,
the entry level of astrology and what your birth chart is. And then we can look at it and see what parts of that birth chart would be indicating what your life purpose could be, and just kind of diving into that. I also do a questionnaire that would kind of kind of guide you towards what your life purpose could be as well. So I'm never trying to pretend like I know what someone's life purpose is, but I want to act as a guide to kind of steer you in that direction and ask those questions to help you think about that for yourself.
right. That's beautiful. I love that too about you. You keep saying that I'm just a guide. So you're just pointing people to where the possibilities are. but it's not, you're not really telling them that should be one way or another. That's one of the things that's really beautifully said about healers. Yeah, that they are guides. Yeah, they never really tell people what to do and how to behave. That's really wonderful to hear from you, that confirmation too. So, once again, your website's purposefulpathhealth.com. It will be on the podcast notes. And my last question to you, Katie, is the idea of freedom. What comes to mind when you hear this word, this concept, freedom?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. To me, freedom is with living without boundaries and restrictions. It's really, um,
Mm,
not feeling like all of our time in the day is answered for. Having the ability to follow our heart in the moment, to make choices that really are authentic and meaningful for us. Being able to
yeah.
express ourselves and show up in this on this earth the way that we feel called to do. Um, Really like walking our truth and not having anything externally confining or restricting that for us is freedom.
Yes. Yeah. It really, every time I hear these kinds of answers, they sound like a mantra to me, like a meditation, guided meditation, because they resonate so deeply. There's like, oh, I could listen to this all day long, all, as long as I'm here in this body. Isn't that interesting? It's like food to the soul.
Well, and you do such a wonderful job here of asking those questions. So I think you're in many ways the healing guide here. Asking
Mm.
those questions that steer these questions and inspire these answers. So thank you.
Who knows? It's fun, though, I have to say. It's really wonderful. Thank you so much again for your beautiful presence, Katie, and your message and everything else in between. And then we'll talk soon. I would love to be in touch. Bye for
Absolutely.
now. Take good care of your beautiful self.
Thank you. You as well. It's been an honor.
Thank you.